There are moments in life when your heart feels heavy, when the world seems to weigh more than your strength can hold. You wake up and carry battles no one sees, fears no one hears, and hopes that sometimes feel like they're fading. But then there's this surah, a divine whisper, a reminder from the one who knows your heart, even when you cannot speak it. This surah doesn't just comfort you, it builds you. It doesn't just speak to your mind, it strengthens your soul. When you recite it, it's as though your spirit stands up again after falling. It teaches you how to begin, not with fear, not with weakness, but with faith. This surah makes you strong, not by removing your pain, but by giving your pain a purpose. When you recite Surah Al-Fatih, you are not just reading a chapter from the Qur'an. You are standing before the Creator of the heavens and the earth, whispering to Him the very words He taught you to speak. It is the opening of the book, but also the opening of your soul. It is not only guidance for your tongue, it is nourishment for your heart. Every line in this surah is a reminder that strength does not come from what you hold, what you earn, or what you control. It comes from who you turn to. When you say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin, you remind yourself that even in pain, even in confusion, even in your darkest valley, there is still praise owed to Him, because He is still the Lord of all worlds. You realize your strength begins where your surrender begins. The world may tell you that power is independence, but Al-Fatih teaches you that real power is dependence. Dependence upon the one who never sleeps, never tires, never abandons. When you whisper, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, you are surrounded by a mercy that never ends, by a compassion that holds you when no one else does. You start to realize that your worth was never measured by what you lost, but by the one who sustains you through the loss. You see, this surah strengthens your heart, not by removing hardship, but by transforming how you walk through it. It realigns your soul. It reminds you that you are not alone in this vast universe, that every heartbeat is heard, every tear is seen, and every prayer is recorded by the most merciful. When you say, Maliki Yawmiddin, you remember that justice belongs to Him. That means the wrong done to you will not go unanswered, and the pain you endured will not go unrewarded. You find the strength to forgive, not because it was fair, but because you know Allah is fair. And that is where real healing begins. When you recite, Ayaka Nabudu wa Ayaka Nasta'in, you are declaring your devotion and your reliance. You are telling the world that your strength is not borrowed from people, not dependent on outcomes, but rooted in your worship of Allah. Every time you say those words, your heart finds stability in the one who never changes. You stop seeking validation from the world because you are already seen by the King of Kings. You no longer fear being forgotten because your name is written in His remembrance. This surah doesn't make your life easier. It makes you stronger. It gives you a compass when you're lost, a calm when you're anxious, and a light when everything feels dark. It takes your weakness and turns it into worship. It takes your uncertainty and fills it with trust. And when you reach the final verse, guide us to the straight path, you realize that strength is not about standing tall. It's about standing guided. Because even the strongest hearts can fall when they are misguided, and even the weakest can rise when they walk in His light. Surah Al-Fatih teaches you to keep asking, to keep seeking, to keep walking the path no matter how heavy your steps. Because every time you open your prayer with these words, you are rebuilding your soul from the inside out. You are reminding yourself that even if everything is taken from you, as long as Allah remains with you, you have lost nothing. And that realization, that divine anchoring, is what gives you strength no battle can break, no pain can shatter, and no darkness can silence. It's not just a chapter to be recited. It's a lifeline. It's the sound of your spirit remembering who truly carries it. The power of Surah Al-Fatih lies in its simplicity. It is short, yet it carries the weight of an entire universe within its 7 verses. It is recited in every prayer, every day, countless times, and yet it never loses its beauty, never fades in its meaning, and never fails to touch a heart that truly listens. In its simplicity, there is a secret that reminds you that closeness to Allah doesn't need complexity. You don't need elaborate words, grand speeches, or long supplications to connect to Him. Sometimes, the most powerful faith comes from the simplest expressions. From a heart that whispers, "Guide me," with sincerity. Al-Fatih is that whisper. It is the bridge between you and your Creator. Every time you recite it, you are being invited into a conversation that heals, strengthens, and revives you from within. The surah begins with praise, not with request. It teaches you that strength begins when gratitude becomes your language. Before you even ask, you acknowledge His greatness, His mercy, His authority. That shift, placing praise before plea, transforms your heart. You stop seeing your struggles as punishments and start seeing them as part of His divine wisdom. You start realizing that even in difficulty, there is something to thank Him for. When your lips say, "Alhamdulillah," your heart learns that no storm can drown a soul that knows how to praise. Gratitude becomes your shield, your quiet resilience in the face of life's chaos. And then, when you recite Rahmanir Rahim, you are reminded that Allah's mercy surrounds you more than the air you breathe. You might have felt unworthy, burdened by mistakes or regrets, but these words pull you back into His embrace. They tell you that no matter how far you have drifted, His compassion reaches farther. They soften your heart and remind you that strength is not hardness. It is softness in faith. The soft heart that still believes after being broken, that still prays after disappointment, that still forgives even when it hurts. That is true strength. Through Maliki Yawmid Deen, you are reminded that Allah owns all things, even the day when all accounts will be settled. The weight you carry, the injustice you face, the pain that no one else understands, none of it goes unseen. That realization releases you from the need to control everything. You begin to find strength not in fighting every battle, but in trusting the one who fights for you in unseen ways. Then comes the verse, Ayaka nabudu wa ayaka nasta'un. To you alone we worship, and to you alone we seek help. These words are an oath, a declaration of loyalty, a reminder that your reliance must be on the one who never fails. Every time you say them, you pull your heart back from the attachments that drain it. You start to see that people can hold your hand, but only Allah can hold your soul. The more you depend on Him, the less fear has power over you. You stop fearing loss because you know that what is written for you will never pass you, and what is not written will never reach you. This verse grounds you. It anchors your spirit in a world that constantly changes. It becomes your spiritual spine, keeping you upright when life tries to bend you. Finally, as you whisper, "Guide us to the straight path," you are reminded that guidance is the greatest form of strength. You can have knowledge, wealth, or influence, but without guidance, you are lost. Guidance gives you clarity when the world confuses you, patience when life tests you, and peace when your heart aches. This single sentence carries your entire life within it. Your fears, your hopes, your journey. It reminds you that strength is not about knowing the way. It's about continually asking to be guided. And that is where the beauty of this surah lies. It is simple enough for a child to memorize, yet deep enough to strengthen the soul of a believer through every stage of life. Every time you recite it, it cleanses your heart, sharpens your faith, and renews your purpose. The simplicity of Al-Fatih is not weakness. It is power hidden in plain sight. It teaches you that the strongest connection with Allah does not come from doing more. It comes from meaning more. Every word is a lifeline, every verse a reminder that no matter how lost you feel, you can always find your way back by saying these simple words with sincerity. Guide us to the straight path. In Surah Al-Fatih, reminds you that true strength lies in surrendering to the one who sustains you. In a world that constantly tells you to be in control, to plan, to fix, to carry everything on your shoulders, this surah gently teaches you that real power begins when you let go. When you stop trying to be the master of every outcome and instead trust the master of all worlds, your soul finally exhales. The first words, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin, are not just praise, they are surrender. You are acknowledging that Allah is the Lord of all that exists, meaning you are not. You are not the one holding the universe together, not the one making the sun rise or hearts beat. You are a servant, not the sustainer, and in that realization lies peace. Because if Allah is the Lord of all worlds, then He is also the Lord of your world. He knows the story you're living, the heartbreak you carry, the prayers you whisper at night. He sees the battles you fight silently, and He never leaves you to face them alone. When you truly grasp that He is Rab, the one who nurtures, grows, and protects, surrender becomes strength, not weakness. You no longer fear what's next, because you know who writes next. When you reach Rahman Rahim, your heart finds comfort in His mercy. Surrender doesn't mean you stop feeling pain or fear. It means you trust that His mercy will carry you through them. Sometimes, Allah doesn't remove the storm, He strengthens you to walk through it. You start to realize that you don't have to understand every delay, every closed door, every heartbreak, because the one you surrender to does. You find power in patience, peace in waiting, and hope in His promise. When you say, Maliki Yamid, Deen, you remind yourself that the day of judgment belongs to Him, that justice is His responsibility, not yours. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to prove your worth to people because your worth was already decided by the one who created you. You stop chasing validation from those who don't see your heart and begin resting in the approval of the one who knows it completely. That kind of surrender brings freedom, the freedom to stop performing, to stop pretending, to stop carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. And then you say, Iyaka nabudu wa ayaka nasta'in. To you alone we worship, and to you alone we seek help. Those words are the heart of surrender. They are the moment your spirit bows, not just in prayer, but in life. You recognize that worship is not just what happens on the prayer mat. It is the way you walk through your days, the way you respond to difficulty, the way you speak to others, the way you rise after falling. Worship becomes your strength because it connects you to the source of all strength. Seeking help becomes your courage because you are no longer relying on limited people. You are relying on the limitless one. You realize that surrender doesn't make you powerless. It makes you powerful in a different way. It teaches you to fight your battles differently, not with fear, but with faith, not with panic, but with patience. When you reach Widana Siratal Mustaqim, you are saying, guide me. Those two words embody surrender. You are admitting that you don't have all the answers, that your vision is limited, but His is perfect. You are asking not for an easy path, but for the right one. That prayer alone is a strength beyond words because it takes humility to ask for guidance. It takes trust to follow where He leads. Sometimes He leads you through loss to teach you detachment, through waiting to teach you patience, through pain to teach you compassion. You begin to see that even in your hardest moments, His hand is still guiding you, shaping you, purifying you. True surrender, as taught by Al-Fatiha, is not about giving up. It's about giving over. It's about placing your heart in hands far steadier than your own. It's knowing that your story is safe with the author of mercy. And when you live with that awareness, strength rises quietly within you. You no longer need to prove yourself strong because you are rooted in the one who is all powerful. You may bend, but you won't break. You may fall, but you'll rise again. Because every time you whisper the words of Al-Fatiha, you are reminding your soul that you were never meant to carry it all alone. The more you surrender, the more you are carried. And that is the paradox of divine strength. The moment you let go, you are lifted. Through the words of Surah Al-Fatiha, you learn that peace and strength are found not in worldly control, but in divine justice and mercy. The world often teaches you to take everything into your own hands, to fix, to control, to manage every situation. But Al-Fatiha shifts your focus from the chaos of control to the calm of trust. When you recite Maliki Yawmiddin, you are reminding yourself that Allah is the ultimate owner of the day of judgment. Those few words carry an ocean of meaning. They tell you that everything will be accounted for, that no tear, no sacrifice, no act of patience will ever be wasted. You realize that it's not your job to make everything fair. It's your job to stay faithful. Strength is not found in revenge or in proving others wrong, but in leaving matters in the hands of the one who never forgets. Every wrong you've endured, every injustice you've seen, every pain that seemed unnoticed. It's all seen, all written, all preserved, and knowing that is where peace begins. When you believe that Allah is the true judge, you stop fighting battles that were never yours to fight. You stop exhausting yourself trying to make people understand what only Allah can see in your heart. You stop chasing after closure and validation because you know that ultimate justice is His, not theirs. That is real freedom. You no longer need to control outcomes. You only need to control your response. That's what Surah Al-Fatiha teaches. That peace is not the absence of difficulty. It's the presence of divine trust. You can walk through storms without losing your balance when you know that Allah's justice will always prevail. Even if not today, even if not in this life. When you say, Rahmanir Rahim, you are balancing that justice with mercy. You are reminding yourself that Allah's justice is never harsh, never cruel, and never blind. It is wrapped in mercy so vast it cannot be measured. He is the most compassionate even when you don't understand His decisions. His mercy doesn't mean life will always be easy. It means that even when it's hard, it will always lead to something good. Through Al-Fatiha, you begin to see that mercy and justice are not opposites. They are two sides of the same divine truth. Justice gives you strength. Mercy gives you softness. Together, they make you whole. When you trust Allah's justice, you stop fearing the unfairness of people. When you trust His mercy, you stop doubting your worth after failure. You find peace in knowing that He judges you by your heart, not by the opinions of others. The words, Ayaka nabudu wa ayaka nasta'in, remind you that your strength comes not from control, but from devotion. The more you worship, the less you worry. The more you seek His help, the less the weight of the world crushes you. Worship turns anxiety into surrender, and surrender turns weakness into resilience. When you ask, Adina Siratal Mustaqim, guide us to the straight path, you are admitting that without His guidance, you are lost. And that admission itself is powerful, because it takes humility to say, I don't know. But it takes strength to live by that humility. It takes faith to keep asking for direction every day, trusting that He will guide you even when the road ahead is dark. The peace you gain through Al-Fatih doesn't come from knowing what will happen. It comes from knowing who controls what happens. You start to rest your heart in His timing, His plan, His justice. So, when life feels unfair, when betrayal cuts deep, when you're misunderstood or hurt, remember, Maliki Yawmid Deen. You don't have to seek revenge. You don't have to carry bitterness. Allah saw it all. And when you remember Rahman Rahim, you also remember that His mercy extends to you even when you've made mistakes. The same mercy that forgives you also protects you. You begin to walk through the world differently, not as someone who needs to win every argument, but as someone whose heart is anchored in divine fairness. Al-Fatih doesn't teach you to control life. It teaches you to trust the one who already does. It lifts the burden of needing to understand everything and replaces it with the calm assurance that everything will be made right in His time, in His way. You start to breathe easier, live softer, forgive quicker, and love deeper. Because once you truly believe that Allah is Maliki Yawmid Deen, the owner, the judge, the just, you stop fearing injustice and start finding strength in surrender. That is the kind of peace that the world cannot give, and the kind of strength that no hardship can take away. Surah Al-Fatih transforms fear into faith, worry into worship, and confusion into clarity. When you recite it sincerely, you begin to see how every word carries healing for the anxious heart. There is a calm that descends upon you, not because your circumstances have changed, but because your focus has. The world often feeds fear, fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. But Al-Fatih rewrites the story of your heart. It shifts your gaze away from what you cannot control and fixes it upon the one who controls all things. When you say, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, you start everything in His name, reminding yourself that no beginning is truly blessed unless His mercy covers it. Suddenly, your fear of the outcome lessens. Because you know the one who began, it will also complete it with wisdom. You no longer walk through your days trembling over the future. You walk through them trusting that the most merciful walks with you. Fear loses its power when faith takes its place. Every verse of this surah invites you to replace worry with worship. When you recite, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin, you are declaring that all praise belongs to Allah, the Lord of all worlds. You are teaching your soul to find gratitude even in uncertainty. Worry says, what if it goes wrong? But worship says, even if it does, Allah is still good. That shift is where strength begins. Gratitude is not the absence of worry. It is the decision to praise in spite of it. When your heart learns to say Alhamdulillah, even while it's breaking, you are already healing. You begin to realize that anxiety fades not by ignoring your problems, but by magnifying the one greater than them. And so your tears turn into prayers, your waiting turns into worship, and your pain becomes a form of remembrance. When you whisper Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the verses wash over your heart like a gentle tide. And they remind you that you are not defined by your fears or failures, but by His mercy. That the one who created you understands every thought that keeps you awake at night, every silent panic that grips your chest, every unspoken prayer that trembles on your lips. His mercy is not conditional on your perfection. It meets you where you are. It forgives, it heals, it lifts. You begin to breathe easier, knowing that you are not abandoned in your weakness. You are enveloped by divine compassion. Fear shrinks in the presence of such love. Then comes Ayaka Nabudu wa Ayaka Nastayin. To you alone we worship, and to you alone we seek help. These words rewire your soul. They remind you that strength is not about pretending you're fine. It's about admitting your need for Allah. Worship becomes your anchor in the storm. In every prostration teaches your heart that you were never meant to carry the weight of your world alone. Seeking His help becomes your act of courage. It is in those moments of surrender, with your forehead to the ground, that your fears begin to fade and your faith begins to rise. The more you turn to Him, the lighter your heart becomes. You start to realize that every worry is an invitation,